my gosh. Hey! The CRAZYDRE Podcast. That's amazing. Alright, folks. The CRAZYDRE Podcast.
Welcome to the CRAZYDRE Podcast Show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is man, a.k.a. Crazy Crockett, a.k.a. Andre's Podcast. I'd like to thank RSS.com. I'd like to thank everyone out there that's listening to my podcast. I'd like to thank everyone that was on my podcast, Ron, Sean, and Griff. Two of the guys are coming back near the future, talk about different topics. One about sports, the other one about his disability. Both are going to be a very good podcast episodes, so please come back. I know we got one on Thursday. We're going to probably talk about Micheal Jordan if it's not fantasy football, but we got to talk about Detroit Lions. And I'm going to try and make this 30 minutes long to 40 minutes at the most, because this is my third take. And I didn't realize how much work I have to do to make a podcast on YouTube work. And I can lose my distractions really easily, but I guess that's why you gotta take notes. So let's start with Detroit Lions. They come off a week of beating Dallas Cowboys. You always are very questionable, iffy about the week that you killed a team that you were expecting to play better. Dallas didn't play at all. When you play a team that doesn't play at all, and then you go to the next week against the Vikings, a team like the Vikings, who are our division rivals, you're in your back in the mind of your fans and some players, you're thinking of not having a letdown. So that's something you really be careful of for Detroit. Detroit came on top, 31-28, and it was just a game that you just can't express how well Detroit played. In the beginning of the game, Detroit looked very shaky. I know that I'm gonna go through the video. I may even go through the stats in a minute or two, or maybe towards the end of the podcast. But I'm going to get down to the nitty-gritty of the first possession for Detroit. Detroit defers to get the ball. Jared Goff gets sacked. So it's 3rd down and 26. Montgomery runs for about, they throw the ball to Montgomery for about 17-yard pass. It's 4th and 7. And Detroit is always known for going for it on 4th down. I personally think that 4th down in your deep territory was not a good idea, especially in the beginning of the game. I know that you want to set a tone, but that tone needs to be kind of leveled a little bit. I think it needs to be more, you're not winning the game in the first quarter. That's my theory. So by going on 4th down in the beginning of the game was an iffy call, and it turned out to be worked against us when the Vikings got the ball. Adams scored a touchdown. But there's a bigger picture of that, though. Arnold, the rookie cornerback, D-back, he missed his assignment. And whenever you have that type of defensive call, and you're the only cornerback in that position, you're supposed to protect the outside. And what that means is that it's your job to make sure if the running back or the tight end runs in that area where you're supposed to be, you're supposed to bring that tight end or running back inside where the defense is. And that's something that that's just something that as a rookie he's going to have to learn in the near future. And I think that as long as he keeps learning, Arnold keeps learning, I think we'll be all right. So Detroit's next possession, they don't do much. Uh, they punt the ball back to the Vikings. Sam Darnold finds his target, Justin Jefferson, once. As they keep moving the ball downfield, um, they find the tight end, but it stops the momentum of that drive. The Vikings score a field goal. Now they're up 10-0. This is a part of the game that or at least Detroit Lion fans are a little bit nervous about. Because when you're down 10-0 on the road and you haven't got a first down yet, you're super nervous. You start to think that the game is going to be blown out by the Vikings. The Vikings just put their foot down and say, "Hey, Detroit, we're not having it. We don't care who you are. Good luck next week." But Detroit's next possession, going into the end of the first quarter, St. Brown gets the first down. The first down of the game. Whenever Jared Goff has a slump or Detroit has a slump, they kind of go back to St. Brown. The next play, Gibbs though breaks out from running back position. Gibbs finds his way for 45-yard touchdown. I think the Vikings weren't set up that defense for a running play, but Detroit, Ben Johnson made a perfect call to make it 7-10. The Vikings' next possession, Sam Darnold surprises me as much as he surprises all of you. He runs for about 20 yards or 15, and Detroit missed an assignment, loses track where Sam Darnold is. Again, the Vikings try to move the ball downfield, but Branch deflects the ball, stops the momentum, gives the ball back to Detroit. This is the possession where St. Brown is found 3 different times. It seems as though Detroit, when they are in a slump, they find their main man, St. Brown. And, of course, Detroit finds a way into the end zone by Jared Goff throwing about a 45-yard touchdown to St. Brown to make it 14-10. This is the first lead for Detroit. You can't express enough gratitude for these two guys on Detroit. And I think if it wasn't for St. Brown finding a way to get open in the zone defense or man-to-man coverage, I don't know how well Detroit would be at all. I just really don't. The next possession the Vikings have, Aaron Jones just finds his way from the backfield. A little side pass from Sam Darnold. The Vikings it's very difficult for any team to stop the Vikings. I mean, I have not seen the Vikings play this well in my whole life. Not even with Chris Carter in that era or even Randy Moss in that era. I'm astonished in how well they're able to move the ball downfield. It gave Detroit a lot of problems. They're just a very tough team. So as I'm watching this, the next play, Brian Branch intercepts Sam Darnold. Now, I don't know if Sam Darnold underthrew the pass or the receiver ran the wrong route or Branch actually knew the play. Now, when I say Branch knew the play, I mean by that he did his homework, he did his film study, he knows the routine of the defense, and he's just that guy that he does his job. I mean, you can't express enough about that. And when I say that, I just think that it's very worthy to talk about Branch because we just didn't have a cornerback like that. Maybe Sly from 8 years ago. We had a guy named Crockett in the '90s that was very wild, but Branch, he does his assignments. I can't express that enough. So Detroit gets the ball back after the interception. They find Gibbs underneath for about a 10-yard pass, about 15-yard gain after the pass. Uh, Jared Goff throws the ball to Laporta. Laporta looks a little hurt, folks. So I don't know to expect a lot of Laporta in the coming weeks after injury. Um, the next play, Gibbs gets the ball right down the middle for a rushing play, for a rushing touchdown. This is something that, Detroit, it's going more to Gibbs and Montgomery. Detroit goes back and forth. You can never tell who's going to get more of the assignment between Gibbs or Montgomery. It just looks like a little bit that Montgomery did get hurt a little bit, so Gibbs took over more of the work. The Vikings get the ball back. Justin Jefferson catches a ball in the backfield, gains about 30 yards. Again, Detroit had a fumble, but it looks like that the Vikings player was out of bounds, so the ball is kept to the Vikings. The Vikings then move the ball downfield pretty well. Detroit's defense, I will say this. Not having Hutchinson, not having that presence to pressure the quarterback or to fill that gap from having Aaron Jones or any running back bouncing outside or keeping him contained, it's pretty evident that we're missing Hutchinson. Now, do I think that Detroit should trade for a defensive end? I do, but I'll get to that probably a little later. So as I'm watching the film study, Jefferson catches the ball for 35 yards. Phenomenal catch. Sam Darnold hits the spot. You can't express enough how great a pass that was, how well the catch for Justin Jefferson that was. It puts the Vikings back in the game, and then it's just something that I'm not used to seeing Detroit give up points like that right away. Again, Detroit's up 21 to 10 at the point. Now it's 21 to 17. So going into the fourth quarter, or is this still the third quarter? Let me check here, folks. No, that was the beginning of the third quarter. So Detroit gets the ball back. I'm sorry for making mistakes here. Again, that's about doing assignments or making sure your assignments are correct. So Goff finds Raymond, and Caleb Raymond is quite a surprise for Detroit. A player that I didn't know anything about from last year or the year before when we got him last year. So this is great that he's spreading the football around. Laporta's not on the field as much. You got to sometimes go away from St. Brown. I don't know. I don't remember seeing Jamison Williamson. So that's something in that I have to kind of do my homework on a little bit. But Jared Goff almost gets sacked. He finds himself moving up in the pocket and finding Sam Brown. Uh, Montgomery is back on the field. He gains about 8 yards. So coming from the second quarter, you kind of forget about Montgomery. But then Raymond catches the ball cross field. His defender loses his traction. Wide open guy, easy touchdown. And then I just think that the way Detroit's spreading the football is something that I'm very happy about. Moving on to the game, you got the Vikings again with the ball. They just keep going at it, and they keep going at it. They don't quit. It was I just can't express on how well the Vikings are playing. Sam Darnold finds, I think he finds Aaron Jones for a 25, 26-yard pass. And that's another threat about the Vikings with Aaron Jones. He's got good hands. So you can't just always defend him in the backfield. You got to keep your eyes on him. Detroit does stop the momentum of that drive by a sack. So I think Pascal sacks Sam Darnold. Again, the Vikings go for a field goal to make it 28-20. And Detroit's still ahead. And it's the beginning of the fourth quarter. I know that in this drive that Detroit gets halted and stopped. But again, Jared Goff finds his man, Sam Brown, a couple times. But they have to punt the football. Sam Darnold gets the ball back for the Vikings. This phenomenal pass to Addison is amazing. Almost 55-yard pass. I think Detroit loses Addison. Our defenders get behind Addison. So this is something that you don't want to give up big plays. You don't want ever give up big plays to give the team, the defense, an opportunity to move the ball downfield. Remember, it's 28-10, about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Sam Darnold again runs out of the pocket, slides. Detroit evades a bad hit. So good for Detroit. Again, I think Detroit stops him again for a sack, and again, the Vikings have to go for 3 points. So it seems as though that when the Vikings get down to a certain spot on the field, Detroit knows how to stop them. And what Detroit's defense knows how to stop them. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we don't need Hutchinson replacement. So because Detroit's front four is doing the job. They're keeping Sam Darnold contained. They're keeping him in the pocket. They're making him rush the plays. They're not allowing him to just sit back there, find the receiver, or letting the receivers get open. So they have to put up for another 3-point field goal to make it 28-23. Detroit's next possession. This is where Montgomery fumbles the ball. But I wouldn't say this is Montgomery's, everything is not his fault. I would say this is Montgomery's 20-80% fault. He's got to protect the football a little bit better, but you know what? The Vikings punched the ball out of Montgomery's hands. You get punched in the arm a couple times, and the ball gets loose. You know, whose fault is it? It's still the running back's fault, but, I mean, it hurts to get punched on the side of the arm. That's what I'm trying to make it out. After that turnover touchdown, the Vikings are up 28-29. The Vikings are up. They go for a 2-point conversion to go up by 3. Do I think this is a good call for the Vikings? I do think it's a good call for the Vikings. This is why I think it's a good call for the Vikings, because if you go up by if you go for an extra point, you're still up by 2, and you can still lose by a point. Now, if you make the 2-point conversion, then you're up by 3, and the field goal doesn't beat you. But hindsight, that's what happened. During the game, you're very happy if you're a Detroit Lion fan that didn't happen, that the 2-point conversion did not happen. So Detroit gets the ball back with about 5.5 minutes left. And this is the play I think that Jared Goff, I think he still has that bad, I don't know what you call it, but he goes brain dumb, or he has a brain fart. And he goes and he gets sacked, and instead of just taking the sack, he tries to throw the ball away to anything or anyone that's not a receiver. And let's just put it this way, folks. Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions got very lucky. Because if the Vikings jumped on that ball, the Vikings could have easily scored another touchdown or a field goal, and Detroit would have had to use multiple timeouts. So, saying that, I think Jared Goff is very lucky. I think that those dumb decisions are stupid. So the Vikings get the ball back. They have the ball over 3.5 minutes left in the game. They instead of using the clock and running the football out, they keep passing the ball. And by passing the ball and incomplete passes, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what the Vikings were thinking, but they didn't let the Lions use any of their timeouts. So Detroit got very lucky again that the Vikings' time management, or managing the time, kicked them in the ass. And this is something that Detroit Lions had problems in the past, is time management. And I think that Detroit learned from their lesson and didn't use timeouts and were patient. And when Detroit got the ball back, they kept the ball down on the ground. And Gibbs ran about 15 yards. They were taking their sweet time with 2.5 minutes to go, down by 1. Now, I think in the past, Detroit would have panicked. Because Detroit would have ran down the field, scored a touchdown or a field goal, and would have left about 1.5, 2 minutes left on the clock. But in this case, Detroit did not do that. They just kept the ball on the ground. They gave the ball to Gibbs twice. They let the ball run. They let the clock run out. So by running the clock down to 2 minutes, and then after the 2-minute warning, they just kind of even took their chances, and then threw the ball to St. Brown. Now, St. Brown was double coverage again, and with 1 minute and some seconds left, Detroit milked the clock out. And I think that, I just think that Detroit doing this was just a phenomenal way of managing the clock. Now, I think that the kicker for Detroit, Bates. Now I want to say something about Bates, folks. Detroit wins the game. They win 31-29, and you get a guy that used to play the USFL or that football league in the summer, and this kid hits 4 different 60-yard field goals and one for a win in the USFL or whatever that league is, and then you sign him, and he hits the game-winning field goal. And one of the best things in the world was watching Dan Campbell give one of the balls to this kid. And Bates explained that he thought his football career was done. He thought he didn't have nothing to do with the NFL or with the USFL or whatever league he came from. And it's pretty cool that he hits the field goal. Dan Campbell gives the ball to Branch, and he also gives the ball to, I think he gives the ball, I don't think it was Jared Goff, but I know he gives the ball to another player in Detroit. But I can't express enough about Detroit. I know this podcast episode was a little rough because I went through the highlights of the game, and I took a bit too long to explain every play or the play or whatever I was watching. So I apologize for that. Moving on, folks. I know I'm a little going everywhere. I'm losing my volume on my voice. Haven't had nothing to drink in about 45 minutes because I've been trying to do this podcast for the last hour and a half. But I got to go talk about Michigan Wolverines. Michigan lost again, and everyone's talking about Sharon Moore's head being chopped off. And I think Michigan fans, counting for myself, I think we need to be more patient. You're not going to get the same guy, the same team. You lose 18 starters in the offense. You lose your starting quarterback. You lose your starting running back. You lose your star coach to the NFL, and you get a coach that's never had a head coaching job in that collegiate spectrum for more. So I want Detroit Michigan fans to chill out. And remember, we won the national championship last year. And if Michigan only gives Sharon Moore 1 year in his 3 or 4 year contract, so be it. But I don't like the idea of being so mean to this guy that you're already want his head off from his throat, because that's not being fair. You're not being good sportsmanship. Moving on, going to the Michigan State game at Michigan in the Big House. I will say this: I do think that Michigan State will win that game. As a Michigan fan, I do think that if Michigan is plus minus, they should be plus maybe 4.5 points. If Michigan is favored, I wouldn't favor them maybe 1.5 points, maybe it's just taking the money line. But I don't see how Michigan's going to win this game. I know it's a big house. I know Michigan State has their own issues, but they're playing pretty good. So keep it real. I'd like to thank everyone that listened to this podcast. Again, it's only a 30-minute long podcast. I will have Ron and Griff on the show for Thursday and maybe Wednesday episode. Peace and love, and I'm out.